secret of the Great Leap. Chapter 1: In Search of Height. Froglet Felix lived in a large, ancient swamp, full of misty reeds, mysterious fireflies, and hidden corners that no one could see. Since childhood, he had always dreamed of something greater than the monotonous life of the swamp. Felix always felt that beyond the thick reeds, there was something more exciting and colorful, something he had yet to experience. He often looked at the high cliffs that framed the swamp and dreamed of jumping over them one day. He knew that this would be his great leap, his path to a new life, to something brighter and more vibrant than the endless swamp. Since childhood, he had watched how freely and easily the birds soared into the sky. He always thought the sky was calling him too, that beyond those high reeds, there was something bigger than the swamp. But little frogs don't fly, they jump, and Felix longed to one day leap, as high as the swallows did. One evening at sunset, Felix saw an old frog, his moss-covered skin, deep wrinkles on his legs, and long, grasping fingers told of a long life filled with adventures. This frog seemed to hover in the air with each of his jumps, as though time didn't exist, and for a moment, his silhouette seemed to linger in the rays of the setting sun. Felix froze, amazed by the majestic leap, and felt a strong desire to learn to jump like that. He wanted to ask the old frog how he managed it, but the frog disappeared into the thick reeds. Every evening, Felix returned to the same spot, hoping to meet the old frog again. One night, when the swamp was covered in dense fog, the frog finally appeared. The secret of high jumps, he said quietly, lies in the strength of your heart, not your legs. If you have the patience and faith, you will achieve what you want. These words became the beginning of Felix's journey, full of mysteries and challenges. Chapter 2: The Trial of the Water Stones. Felix began training at dawn, jumping from one lily pad to another, then hopping from stone to stone. However, the more he tried, the more he realized how difficult it was each time. He fell short of the height he wanted, and it seemed as though the very earth was against him, refusing to let him rise. He tried every day, again and again, but feelings of dissatisfaction and exhaustion overwhelmed him, and doubts filled his mind. Maybe this isn't for me. What if I'm not meant to jump high? One day, while he was training, a snake named Slip noticed him. She was sly and envious, and when she saw the little frog diligently practicing, she sneered, "Do you really think you can jump higher than anyone else? Want to test your strength on the water stones?" Felix, stung by her mockery, decided to prove her wrong. Gathering all his strength, he leaped, but slipped, and the stones in the pond were cold and slippery. The froglet fell again and felt like he had failed himself. But the old frog, who was nearby, had been watching. He approached and said, "Every failure is a step towards success. The important thing is not to be afraid to rise and try again." Chapter 3: The Whisper of the Reeds. After many days of training and failure, Felix woke up one night when the swamp was shrouded in thick fog. The moon reflected on the surface of the water, and everything around him seemed to be engulfed in silence. Felix stayed by the shore, watching the trembling shadows. Suddenly, he thought he heard the reeds, swaying in the gentle breeze, whispering something, as if they were talking. "Are you afraid of your weaknesses, little frog?" the reeds seemed to whisper. Felix looked around but saw no one. The whisper sounded again. Strength does not come instantly. It comes to those who are ready to face themselves and leap again and again, without expecting a reward. The reeds continued to whisper, and gradually their voice seemed to calm him. Felix realized that fear shouldn't control him, and that if he continued to train, one day his legs would lift off the ground, just as he had always dreamed. That night, he made his first confident jump and felt lightness in his heart. Chapter 4: The Old Legends and the First Leap. As the morning dawned, Felix found the old frog by the water. The sun's rays were turning the swamp golden, and the old frog slowly told him ancient legends of frogs who leapt so high that they could touch the branches of trees. But these jumps weren't for competition, the old frog said. They leapt because it was a part of their soul, a yearning from within. They leapt not to reach the height, but for the freedom itself, to become part of the sky, even if only for a moment. As he listened, Felix began to understand that his yearning was about something more than just jumping higher than anyone else. He realized he needed to find his own strength to move freely in this world. That night, he tried to jump without thinking about the height. He just jumped, and to his surprise, he soared higher than ever before. He realized that the jump was something personal. a moment of inner freedom. Chapter 5: The Flight to the Stars. Many days of training passed, and one day Felix felt he was ready to make his great leap. The swamp was wrapped in the stillness of the night, and the stars sparkled in the sky, as if calling him. In that moment, Felix stopped thinking about his fears, his mistakes, and simply pushed off the ground. He leapt high, so high that the reeds appeared as tiny lines beneath him, and the stars seemed to come closer, as though inviting him into their world. As he leapt, Felix realized that this moment wasn't just about height. It was about freedom, that very feeling he had dreamed of since childhood. He felt that he was finally leaving the swamp behind, that this jump meant stepping into a new world. When he landed, he found himself on a lush green meadow, bathed in sunlight, with a bright rainbow on the horizon. Everything around him was filled with fresh flowers and scents. There were no more misty reeds or dark swamps, just endless expanses and freedom. Felix realized that his leap had brought him to the place he had always dreamed of. He had become part of this wonderful world, and there were no longer any limits to his aspirations. But at that moment, as he stood on the new land, breathing in the fresh air, and looking at the rainbow, one thought came to him. This was only the beginning of his journey. In the distance, beyond the horizon, he saw new mysterious forests, mountains, and valleys. He realized that ahead of him lay new challenges and discoveries. This world was much bigger than he had ever imagined, and now, with his legs free to touch the earth, he was ready to move forward. What comes next, thought Felix. What heights do I still have to conquer? With this question in his heart and new dreams in his mind, he set off into the unknown, knowing that every new step would be even more thrilling and full of wonders. He was ready for new adventures, and this was just the beginning, to be continued.